How do you address your spiritual nature? And very often you hear from people, later. I'm busy. My life is kind of full. I'm going to get to that one day. Well, that, from the moment of my Dr. Hart experience, that never made sense to me. Because once you find out that you're a spiritual being, everybody say, I am.
I am.
Touch your heart center if you're willing. Give yourself that support. Say, I am. I am an immortal spiritual being.
I am an immortal spiritual being.
Superior to my mind.
Superior to my mind.
To my body.
To my body.
And to my experience.
And to my experience.
Oh. Okay, now listen to what we just said. I am an immortal spiritual being. Superior to my mind, to my body, and to my experience. Now, what are you? An immortal spiritual being. An immortal spiritual being. Well, if you are then 100% spiritual, why are you waiting to address your spirituality? Right? And it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what religion, it doesn't matter what color, what background, how much money, where you came from, what country you came, it does not matter. It makes absolutely no difference at all. You and all human beings are 100% spiritual beings. Now, I mentioned this philosopher, Ernest Holmes. I have a favorite line of Ernest Holmes. There are two favorite lines of Ernest Holmes that neither one of them are in his writings. They can be found if you look carefully within them, but they were things that Ernest Holmes said that I have had the opportunity to hear him say, either by video or audio. And you had to be paying attention to catch them. So oftentimes in my classes, oh, by the way, I understand you're starting classes here. Right? If you have not taken the foundational class, or what we call sometimes Foundations or Science of Mind 100, this is the class that is absolutely essential for learning how to be a human being. And it is the place where your life will really change. So I'm happy to teach all day today. I'll download as much information as you are able to receive. Let me say that again. I will download as much information as you are able to receive. Right? Because everybody's consciousness is different, and everybody is somewhere else along the journey. The good news is that you're 100% a spiritual being, and everybody's going to get it sooner or later. Ernest Holmes says, when the pile is complete, we're all going to be in it. So everybody's coming along. And so everybody's in their right place, and ours is never to proselytize or force feed anybody, but to simply offer ideas and to allow the mind to find its right relationship with spirit. If mind finds its right relationships with spirit, then your body will find its right relationship. Everybody repeat after me. I am whole, complete, and perfect. Did you know you are whole, complete, and perfect right now? You don't need anything. You don't need to become anything. You don't need to solve anything. You don't need to fix anything. You're whole, complete, and perfect right now. Now, everybody is in truth that, but what did Jay say earlier? I am waking up. Today's lesson is entitled, this evening's afternoon seminar, right after lunch, as we celebrate the 30-year-old Mrs. Neal. Right after lunch, we're going to enter into this conscious living seminar, which is about how much of your mind is conscious. So Ernest Holmes, in his writings, is my two favorite lines, little hidden lines. He says, the Spirit of God is found in your conscious mind. The Spirit of God, you see, we know we have a conscious mind, we know we have a subconscious mind, we know we have the result of everything we think. Consciousness creates experience, and through the sum total of our beliefs, that comes out as our experience, right? But the question is, where do we actually find, if God is everywhere, where do we actually find God? And the answer is in your conscious mind. You remember the biblical story of Saul. Most of you who came from the Christian background, and I did, I was baptized in the Episcopal Church. And most of us who came from the Christian background, we came from a teaching that suggested there was a power outside of ourselves and that Jesus was the intermediary between ourselves and that power. Right? And the only thing different about the science of mind is, well, Jesus is your friend, but you don't need a mediator. Right? So is St. Francis, so is Gibran, so is Abraham, so is Moses. All of the great men and women throughout time became awake to their spiritual nature. Thereby, that song we sang this morning becomes very relevant. I see the God in you, you see the God in me, you belong to me, I belong to you. Well, there's only one thing here. Of course, that's the truth. Right? But how much of it do you know? Only as you wake up. So the Christian teaching, which most of us, if we came from that path, and if you came from the Abrahamic path, which we do Judeo-Christian path, same thing. And the other alternative to that path is the Eastern path, which was the awakening of the Buddha consciousness. So what we know is there's no difference between the awakening Buddha and the awakening Christ. They belong to all people, and you don't have to be on one side of the world or the other. It's all the same thing. And the question is, how much of it are you awake to? How much are you conscious of in your conscious mind? Now, there is something called transformation. We've heard about this, right? Transformation, by the way, Paul, and that's who I'm going to talk to about right now, Paul, who was really the writer of what became Christianity. Remember, Jesus was a Jew. He never heard of Christianity. Jesus never heard the term Christian, never knew anything about Christianity. Right? That came later, more than 100 years later. Right? So it took a long time for the ideas of this great teacher to find a form, and when they did, they found a form that was a little bit askew, and then, of course, associated with forms become power. Yes? And then when you have power, you go to maintain power. And so they made a rule book. Do you see? And in the 1200s in the Nicene Council, they radically even changed the rule book even more. So there is no such thing as the Word of God. The Word of God is anything that's truth. And you know how you know what truth is? Truth is birthless, deathless, and changeless. It's always true. Truth doesn't change. Facts change. They believed at one time the world was flat. That was a fact, not a truth. Do you see? Truth is always, always, always truth. And we have access to truth, but truth is found in our conscious mind. So this guy, Paul, who wrote everything that we learned about how to listen to the master teacher Jesus, this guy, Paul, was walking down the road to Damascus, the very same road Jesus had walked down later and had earlier and had a transformation, right? But he's walking down the road to Damascus, and he had a transformation. Saul was a tax collector, and he had the same kind of experience that I had in the hospital bed. All of a sudden, the light turned into everything. Everything became the light. He started vibrating the light. See, truth is birthless, deathless, and changeless. What happened to me in the hospital is exactly the same thing that happened to Paul. It's the same thing that happens to all of us when we all of a sudden go, oh my God, God is real. Right? When we awaken, but you see, you have to be conscious for that. So Saul's walking down the road. He has this transformation. It's so deep, the transformation. He was so conscious of the transformation that he let go his whole life as Saul, the tax collector, and became Paul, the messenger of light. Right? Now, imagine if he'd been walking down the road and had not been conscious of his transformation. It would have been a nice walk. Do you understand? There wouldn't have been a transformation. There just would have been this experience and no awareness that came with it. In order to wake up, we have to be conscious of what's happening. And in order to be spiritually conscious, we have to be conscious of what is happening to us in relationship to truth. That which is birthless, deathless, changeless, and eternal. Now, I don't know about you, but waking up to that, has anybody gone to a Tony Robbins seminar? Anybody been to a Tony Robbins seminar? I've been to one. Anybody been to a Deepak Chopra seminar? Oh, I've been to a few. Anybody been to a Wayne Dyer seminar? I've been to a few. Anybody seen Marianne Williamson? Oh yeah, I've been to a few. Oh yeah, so I've been to all of these seminars. And you know, when you go to some of these seminars, there are things called bullet points. And they tell you, learn how to transform your life. Learn how to awaken to the great consciousness. Learn how to create the life you want to imagine. Learn how to make your dreams come true. Learn how to become an instant and bust through the money game. And you learn all of these things in these bullet points. You all went to those seminars. Did any of those transformations happen to you? You know why? Because growth is a personal deal, and it requires your conscious attention, and it's going to require your conscious practice. So a lot of people love the ideas of one God, one power, one life. I can create anything I want. Life is all good. Life is all joy. Just don't give me any hard time about it because I don't know how to deal with that. And there's nothing to forgive. I love that one. I teach forgiveness all over the country. People say, oh, well, there's nothing to forgive. Real growth, real spiritual growth, real transformation requires that you purpose yourself toward it. And we love religious science and new thought, science of mind. Why do we like all of this? Well, because we don't have any dogma. We don't have any rules. Well, let me see if I can straighten this out a little bit here. We believe there is only one authority. Only one authority in the entire cosmos. And that authority is called demonstration. Demonstration is not a woo-woo word. You don't have to be from California to know it. Demonstration is found in a dictionary. It means to prove by making real. Jesus said, by your fruit shall you know them. By their fruit shall you know them. Means what they demonstrate, what they bring forward in their life. That's how you know what is true. Right? So we don't have dogma, that's true. We don't have rules. But we do have a practice. And Ernest Holmes repeats it again and again and again and again, and yet we don't like to hear that part. So two words we never like to hear in New Thought. Sacrifice, ooh, we don't like that word. No sacrificing and no rules. But if you have no sacrificing and no rules, you have no practice. And if you have no practice, how are you going to grow? Because you know the old Irish poem, if you continue to do what you've always done, you'll continue to get what you always got. Right? What's the definition of insanity? I bet you all know it in this room. Consciousness has changed so much that we all have the same definition of insanity. And the new definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over and expect a different result. Right? You have to change something. Now, isn't change something sacrifice? Isn't that the same? You have to give something up in order to take something new. You've got to be willing to change. So, okay, we don't have sacrifice. We do have change. And have you ever noticed, as my friend Terry Cole Whitaker says, that the only thing constant in the universe is change, and the only thing we fight with all of our might is change? Right? So somewhere in there, there's got to be a give. So we do have a practice. The practice is, as declared by Dr. Holmes, and as a student of Dr. Holmes, a practice which I daily participate in. He says daily we should meditate, and daily we should do our spiritual mind treatment, which means our affirmative prayer in health, wealth, love, and purpose. Right? Daily you should do your affirmative prayer. And some people in this room have not learned a class. You don't know what a 5-step affirmative prayer is. You don't know how to do spiritual mind treatment. And if you do, bless you, and yay, are you practicing daily? I would ask that question. So, well, how come your life isn't working? Are you practicing daily? Johnny Coleman, the great spiritual leader out of Chicago, has a button that she put on me personally. And one day when I wasn't wearing the button, she saw me down the hall. She said, where's your button? And she put another one on me. And the button says, it works if you work it. Right? Daily, we have to meditate, and daily we should do spiritual mind treatment. And I know in New Thought churches, because I travel all around the country and indeed around other countries talking about these ideas, and I know we do not have a lot of daily meditators in our midst. And if you do not know how to meditate, it's as easy as buying my CD. I have a CD called Sea of the Self. Jay had it here for you. And the least you can do is put the CD on and start learning how to practice. Right? This does not teach you how to do it. It just says sit down there, you're going to meditate. Not to be used while driving. Right?